Okay, I think let's start. So let's just recap what we went through for last week. So for last week, what we did was, so remember after the first week, everything was in one single scene, which is game. So for last week, we have already split each object into its own scene. Namely, we have already split the players, we have split the line, and and also we have created an enemy. And while creating those, we also learn how to we learn about signals, which basically, let's say for enemies, in bullet, we learn a signal, the signal called body enter. And when body enter, basically when the user when the player character enter the bullet, then we ask the player to take damage. And the way we do that is by collision layers. In this case, for example, we make the bullet to be of mass one so that mass one can interact with layer one, and only the player exists on layer one. In that way, when the body enters the this area 2D called bullet, we know that the body is the player. So, and we also learned about object instantiation, where we save the bullet as a class by using the preload keyword, and then we use bullet.instantiate to instantiate the new give me a moment.
How do you get the
Okay, right.
on body enter again?
On body and so remember when you go into the bullet scene and then you click on the bullet node, and then under the node tab on the right, uh there's a bunch of
Yeah.
signals here.
Oh,
And then you double click on the body enter, and then you'll be able to attach the signal to one of the objects that has script attached to it. In this case, the only object that has the only node that has script attached to it is the bullet. So once you double click on it, there'll be a function on bullet timer.
what happened to the
Wait,
attendance?
sorry. It should be an no, it should be wait, bullet. So it should be on body enter. Yeah. So I hope everyone was able to follow last week session. So we will move on from there. Give me a moment. Okay, so where to start? Okay, so as you notice, right, when you play, okay, like in a normal game, right? Okay, like for this game, you only have one single plank. Okay, I hope that y'all have already done the balancing, because my game now is not very balanced because the jumping is a bit difficult to control. But anyways, regardless, so as you notice that in our game, the only object that's static that contributes to the environment is the blank. But what if in a very complicated game, right? What if you need like other things, like let's say some random objects on the way, and then like how do you make those, right? It's probably very troublesome to create like a bunch of objects and then just plug it into the map. So what the a good practice for it is to use tile map. So let us create a new scene call. Okay, and then the root node, you can search for a node called tile map. Okay, and double click on it. So this node basically allows you to add the map easily. So let's save this scene first into map. And then let's save this as map scene. Okay. So, okay, actually before that, let me export the assets and send to your what we will be used today. Hmm.
Okay, we call the scene map in places we do map, right?
Yeah, give me a moment. Hmm.
I don't know. Or you just save now and it will ask for delete.
Okay, so I sent you all the materials that we'll be using today. So in the folder we have an asset to create like an animation static. But okay, sorry before we continue, I forgot something that we need to go through. So oh, please scan the QR code for attendance. Yes.
Yes, that's yeah. Stay with me, right? Yeah.
Yes. So, as usual, as announced previously, in week five, there'll be a game jam on Saturday. So, the game jam will be getting funding from NUS and how to get funding by getting you all to attend this workshop. So, by scanning your attendance, you're helping us to get more funding. By getting your more funding, will help you to be able to organize the workshop. So, yes, please scan for attendance. Okay, so that okay, so for this semester, we have something called Project Dev, which is basically um, it's basically the main activity after recess week. So there are, I believe that you have already seen the messages in the announcement group. So basically, there's a bunch of games that a lot of people have proposed their projects. So if you all feel interested, and you think that maybe game dev is something that you want to do in the future, or maybe you just want to explore game dev, so this will be a very good way to um start your game development project and journey. But anyways, quite long information here. The slides will be shared with you all at another time, so you will be able to reference these. So no need to take picture whatsoever.
Why is it?
Two Godot teams. The rest are Unity. I guess because Unity is more popular. I don't know. I mean, Godot has always not been as popular as Unity, but yeah. Please support Godot, guys. It's much better than Unity. Okay, anyways, so yeah, this is the sign up link. If you're
What's your put your wallpaper? Is it for
okay, wait. So yeah, so the link for sign up is here. If you are interested right now, you think that you're very interested in project dev, you can join. If not, this slide will be shared with you anyway. So okay.
using a bunch of so the green dots that make the UI. Yeah. So we all need to
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah. Let me move my camera elsewhere. Okay, so next we have Exco recruitment. So if you're interested in taking up a leadership position, and maybe you love game dev, you don't just love game dev, you also want to share your love with other people. Let's say you want to teach other people like Godot like me, or maybe you want to help game dev in spreading love for game development for everyone. In NUS or even like outside NUS, like we also organize events for outsiders. So if you're thinking that you're interested in those kind of things, you can go for Exco. So these are some of the roles that we're recruiting. So industry relations is basically you're managing. So let's say when we organize events, and sometimes we find like um uh, funds outside. So basically, you need to we need to contact the industry to get funding. So that's where the industry relations director comes in. Then we also have a community engagement director, which basically, let's say if there are like activities that NUS asks us to do, or like any kind of activity, then the community engagement director is basically responsible for getting the people to do engage the members of the club. And then we have secretary and web developers, as the name tells, what is basically what it is. And workshop heads, which is like me, where you can organize the workshop, and afterwards you also help with the expo in other stuff like organizing events, that kind of thing. So yeah, these are some of the roles that we're recruiting. So again, the slide will be shared with you all. So if you're still thinking, you can refer back to the slide. Yeah. So that's more information will be shared with you all in a later day. So yeah, that's about the information that I need to share with you all. Okay, so any questions so far? No questions for you? No? Yes. Okay, so let me start with the workshop. Okay, so so basically we just recap what we went through for last week. And so what we did just now was just to create a tile map. And I hope you all have been able to download the assets for today. So let's okay, tile. Oh, okay. So when you create a tile map, right? So similar to when you have created a sprite or animated sprite, what you need to do is you need to create resource for it. So under inspector, under tile set, you need to add a new tile set. So we have two separate things here. One is tile map and one is tile set. Tile map is basically a node, and tile set is basically the resource for you to build the tile map. So when you click on the tile set, you'll be able to go to the editor of the tile set. So you notice at the bottom, there's two separate tabs, tile set and tile map. So tile map is basically for you to edit the node itself. Tile set is basically for you to edit the resource to build the tile map. So now we need to add the assets for it first. So once you have imported, you'll be able to pull. Okay, I've not imported myself, so I need to do the import. Um, okay. Okay, so once you have imported, you should see. Okay, it's probably okay. So you should see the minimalistic tile set, which is just a random tile set that I got from HIO. So you can click on this and then drag to the tiles. Okay, yes or no, it doesn't really matter. Okay, so you should be able to see something like this where you have the tile and then you can set up, and this is the view of the tile. So what you need to do is, okay, let's zoom. Oh my God. Okay. Okay, so let's zoom in and you see this is the tile that's auto detected by the algorithm. But these tiles are actually wrong, so we need to fix it. Basically, it should be half, the unit should be half of this. So under texture,
Part three is the assets, right?
yeah, and then you unzip the folder.
Okay, so the report.
Okay, so under the texture, you need to change this to 8 pixel times 8. And then I need to select. Okay, to select all the tiles, what you can do is from the top corner, you click Control and then drag all the tiles. So this basically, I'm selecting all the tiles to be included in the tile map. So you can, so what I'm planning to do is, I will just use the top three. the top 9 tiles in the tile map, but you all can use any tile, other tiles that you want. So, okay, so maybe I'll pause a moment to take. Wait, the part, have you unzipped the file?
Yeah.
Then you don't need to drag like that. You just go back to the editor. Go back to the editor. Have you put it under your assets?
Yes.
Open the assets. Do you find the access for it? Yeah, put the part 3 under assets folder.
My top right hand disappeared. Yeah, but how do I go back to
That one where you
I'm asking how do I go back to my normal the time.
you click on the note.
Yeah.
It's probably because you change the tab then it's all there. But you go to the editor and see what it is. Okay, it imports already. But where's your minimize? Where's your file? You copy that one into the editor. You can't copy it. You probably have to copy in the folder scroll. You go to find the copy. The finder. Yeah, that one. Okay, I hope everyone is able to create the tile set. So what we do now is we will try to add these tiles into the tile map. So you see under the bottom panel, you are now in the tile set. So that's basically where we edit the resource. So what we need to do is we add it to the tile map, right? So under tile map, we select the top 3. Okay, let me try to zoom in. Okay, so when you select the top 3 already, what you need to do is you just click and then drag and then release. And then when you hover over the map, you should have it should show something like you're gonna place the tile. So if you click on the tile, then it should place, but let's not place yet because when you see, right, actually it's quite fragmented. Like basically it's like 9 tiles, but then like every part is in its own center. So if your editor is something like this, that's basically because we define the grid to be the unit the unit square to be larger than the tile itself. So what you need to do is you click on on the right under the inspector, under the tile set, right, you see there's a tile size over here. So now we are defining tile size of 16 times 16. Remember just now when we edit the tile, when we edit the tile set, the unit is actually 8 times 8. So that's why you can see there's like the tile that's very fragmented like this. So what you need to do is we need to edit tile size as well. So after fixing it to 8, then you should see like you should see when you hover over the tile, hover over the map, you should see something like this. So you see this one, like one unit is actually bigger than it's supposed to be, right? It's actually half. So you go to the setup and you scroll down. You see like the texture rectangle. It's supposed to be 8 times 8. And then you select all the tiles. So you press control, you press command control, and then use the like basically you have to press and drag. I mean, these are the unselected ones. Like you have to click and drag. Like you have to hold and drag. Oh, I think you probably have the. But I think that was.
Okay. Oh, okay. Okay, so select.
Yeah. So once you're able to place a tile onto the map already, you can start building your own map. So I will be building my own map as well. Right?
Now a bit separated.
Yeah. So if you see like under the tile set, right? The tile size is actually bigger than this. Yeah. So in this game, we're not going to make a very complex tile map, but in case of, let's say you want some kind of game like, want to explore around the map or just any kind of map, then this is the tool for you to do. In this case, I will just be making the tile so that it becomes like a platform for the player to be able to jump onto. So okay, so if you explore around, then you can see that you can actually erase the tiles as well. So in case you misplace some tiles, that's something you can use to erase. Okay, so with the tile being already there,
How the race how is like the
you click on this,
okay, yeah, I see.
and then you just click on the tile that you want to use.
Okay.
Okay, so y'all can just create a simple tile map, and then we will be adding this tile map into the game. So you go back to game. Okay, let's save the scene first. And then when you go back to game, right click and then instantiate child scene. So remember in that instantiate child, that's the way for you to instantiate another scene in the main game or in any other scene that you want. So I'll be instantiating the map scene. Okay, so let's try and see. Of course, it won't work. Okay, anyone can tell me why does this not work? Yes, correct. So remember, whatever object that we create, if we want it to be able to interact with other objects, we need collision shape. So what we do is we go back to tile map, we go back to the map scene, and okay, we go back to the map scene, and then when you click on the tile map and then under inspector, under the tile set, you can see that there's something called the physics layer. So now there's no physics layer or whatsoever attached. So what you do is we add elements. So now we have an element. Yeah, so what we want to do is we want it to be able to interact with the player. So remember that the player used the mask of the map in order to interact with the map. So let's just recap what the collision layers and masks are about. So remember under the player, under the script, remember that the way that it, remember like when you drop onto the plank, it is able to stop because the move and slide use the mass of the player to determine if it collides with the object. So let's say because now we have the mass 2, so if the player detect another object that's on layer 2, that it would be able to stop. So let's say, so that means that the plank object should have collision layer of 2. So that's how it determines collision between the plank and the player. So what we need to do is we also need to give the map the same collision layer as the plank. So basically it should have a collision layer of 2 and it should not have any collision mask. So that's just determine the layer, but we have not determined the shape. So what we need to do is we need to determine the shape as well. So under tile set, remember the tile set is where you can edit the resource to add into the tile map. So what we need to do is we need to add the collision shape into the tile set. So let's go back to the 2D panel. And then, okay, what you can do is you can select the tiles that you want to add the collision shape. So let's say what I want to, the tiles I want to add is the 3x3 top left. So what I'm doing is I'm holding onto the mouse and then drag. So that's how you can mass select the 9 tiles. And then you can see that under under the under the drop downs, there's actually one drop down called physics. So physics layer, and then what you can do is you add poly. So under physics, you have the options to add the collision shape. So you can, so in this way, what I want to do is I want to add. So there are 3 icons here. The first one is to add. The second one is to edit. The third one is to delete. So what I'm going to do is I want to add the collision shape. So what I do is I can click on the points. So this is the first point, this is the second point, this is the third point, and this is the fourth point. And then I need to click back on the first point to complete the collision shape. Okay, maybe I pause for from a moment to take questions. You pick a square, so you get 5 points, there are 4 points. Yeah. And now I'm making it. Yeah. Mm. I mean, you can do the balancing to make sure that the game is more playable. So here I did not do the balancing. Okay, anyone still need time to? Anyone have any question about the format or?
Go to crash.
Hmm?
Go to crash.
Why does it crash?
I don't know. I just played. Just play. It was the first time in the night. I didn't want to play it. Let's see how much I lost. And then I wanted to play again. So I lost. Okay, thank God. I don't think I lost. Yeah, no, I lost.
Okay. Under okay. So under actually, this one you have only created the 3 point. You need to click on the last point. Like basically, you need to complete the level.
Yeah, no problem. Oh, it is.
Okay, so I hope everyone is able to create the tile map. So I will be moving on. So as a result, you should have been able to create something like this where the player is able to drop onto the collision, onto the tile map. Okay, so next, so what you have noticed is the last time that we did this game, what we do is we have been able to make the player to take some damage, and then once the player runs out of health, the player will disappear. But the problem now is that we don't know how much health the player has left, right? So what we can do, yeah. So suddenly it just disappear, but I don't know how much health, right? So in normal games, what you have is like a health bar. So basically, yeah. So let's try to create a health bar now. So the health bar is basically it's like some kind of a UI thing, right? So we should create a new scene for it. So what we do is we create a new node. So we can search for a node called progress bar. Okay. Okay, so once you have created the progress bar, okay, so let's change this to make it called health bar. And then I can save this scene. So, okay, so because this is like UI related, right? So in terms of folder organization, what we need to do, what we should do is to create a new folder called UI, and then save it under the UI folder. Okay. And then before we do anything to the health bar, let's just add it to the game and see how it looks like in the gameplay. So instant child scene, health bar. Okay. Um, yeah, so it should look something like this where you have a health bar. Okay, but as you can see, the health bar here, it's we haven't styled it. So what we need to do is we need to style it, and the second thing is we need to make sure that this health bar indicates how much health the player has. So first thing is let us try to style it. So okay, before we style, so here you can see that the range, right? There's the min value and max value. So let us so the value here is 0. That's why you can see the 0%. So we can change this to 30. Okay, so if you replay the game and you can see that the health bar kind of have like a something that fills up, right? So 30%, then there's like the thing that indicates 30% there. So what we need to do is we need to style both the part that fills up and both the part that indicates the blank space. So um so under health bar, we can do is you add theme overrides and styles. So under theme overrides and under style, you have two parts where you have the background and you have the fill. So what you need to do is now is just empty. So that's why it displays the default layout. So what you do is we need to put some kind of style there. So what I do is I add a new style box flat. Okay. Uh, and then under the panel here, is where you can style. So first is I need to style the background. So let's just pick a color. Okay, so the color change. And under style, under style of the fill, I also change the color. Okay, I'm just picking a random color so that this just to give you an idea of how you can edit the style, but you can choose a color that fits what you like. So background color, and then okay, let's have some border width. So maybe 2 pixel.
Okay, so is it in the border?
What?
Okay, so that
Okay, what I did was I click on the health bar node under the inspector panel. I click on theme overrides, and then under theme overrides, I have something called styles. And then under styles, you have basically you have two parts, the background and the fill. So you both create, so initially it will be empty. So what you need to do is you need to create a new flat style. Okay, and then under these, they're basically like parts where you can edit. So what I have done is I changed the background color, and then I changed the border width. So under border, what you can change the border color as well, but I think white is nice, so I will not change the color. So you can okay. One thing that you take note is usually when the okay, just draw out. Right. So usually when you have a health bar, so let's say this is the inner part, and then you have the border. So usually what you want is the health bar to just fill in the inner part, but it should not fill the border as well. But what you see is the inner part also fills the border. So what you need to do is you need to expand on. So okay. Okay, so what you do is you need to expand the margin as well. So the border is 2 pixels, so you need to expand the margin by 2 pixels as well. So the fill should not overlap with the border. And then you can have border radius as well. Okay, it's called corner radius. And then under corner radius, maybe set it to 5. Yeah, 5 should make it. Okay, and then you can change the style of the fill as well. So in this case, most of the things are fine, but I'll probably just change the corner radius to fit the corner radius the of the background. So 5, 5, 5, 5. Yeah, so basically, corner radius is basically it shows the curvature. So if you increase the value of the corner radius, it increase the curvature. You decrease just now it was 0, so basically it's just a sharp edge. Yeah, so if you play the game again, you can see that it's properly styled in the way you can adjust more things if you want, but yeah. Okay. Anyone have any questions or anything about the styling of the health bar?
Okay, the corner is still sharp. There's so like a corner radius. Ooh. Hmm.
Okay, I think this part should be okay. Just UI and some adjustment of the style. So let's continue. So now what we need to do is we need to make sure that the value of this health bar follows the value of the health of the player. So what we do is we can create a script and okay, let's just call it health bar and then put it there. Okay, so okay, what we need to do is we just need the process function. So if you go back to your game, if you go back to the main scene, so basically this game node, we have the health bar that's the child of the game, and we also have the player to have we also have the player to be the child of the game. So remember the structure because this is the way that we can read the player. So the player's health bar. So what we need to do is from health bar. So from health bar, we need to go to the parent game. And then from the game, we need to go to the player. So basically, you need to call the parent, and then we need to select the player. But okay, let's do in that way first. So for every frame, what we do is we get okay. So the way to get the value of the player is get parent, and then get child, and then the node is called player. And then okay, so it's not get child, it's called get node. Okay. And then it should, and then remember this node we have already defined in our script. So basically, this node it refers to the player, and then we just read the health from there. So this is basically how we can get the health value. And then what you do is value is equal to this. So value is basically a built-in field of the uh, the built-in field of the health bar, of the progress bar, basically. And then what I do is we change the field to be the same as the health of the player. Okay, so let's try. So now it's 100%. When I take damage, it decreases. Okay, another thing to note is I do not want the value to be displayed. So I just need to, in normal games, it doesn't really display the value. So, okay, let's change when you go to health bar, and then when you click on the health bar node, show value. Okay, here there's an option called show percentage. So this option basically tells you whether to display the value on the health bar or not. So I will untick this. So I do not want to display the percentage. I only need the visual display of the progress bar. So if I play again, and you probably notice an error that occurs in my game. So after a while, after I take enough damage and I should disappear. But so before I add the health bar, I disappear. But now what happens is the game crash. So what is this? It's because we basically we're basically trying to get node. So after the player has disappeared, basically get node player. Basically it's get node player is basically like it's a no node because like the player is no longer there. So this approach is somewhat not very fine. So basically what we need to do is instead from the player, we ask the health bar to update the value instead of asking the health bar to update the value by reading the value of the player. So what I need to do is instead of using this approach, what I do is we define a function called update value and value. Okay, new value. And then what I do is value is equal to new value. So in this way, you can imagine that let's say if the player is still there, when the player takes damage, the player will ask the health bar to update the value. So the player will call this method. But let's say when the player disappears, no one will call this method, so there won't be a no pointer exception. So let's go back to the player. And then under the player script, what you do is when the player takes damage, remember the health only changed here. So what you do is we get parent and then gets node. And then the node is called health bar, but bar. Okay, let's change the name of this node here called player health bar. Because in future, let's say we want to add the health bar of the boss as well. So let's just name it player health bar. And then under the script, under player, so get parent and then get node player health bar and then update value and then put in the value of the health. Okay, and save, and then let's try again.
So that again, after player health bar, what did you write?
After the player takes damage, what I did was okay, can okay, so under function take damage, I basically changed the value of health. Basically I changed the value of health, and then after I change the value of health, what I do is I get the player health bar, and then ask it to update the value with the new value being the current health of the player.
Okay.
And then what I did in the health bar script is basically I defined a function called update value with a parameter called new value, and then I edit the field value, which is the built-in field of the progress bar. Okay, yeah. So I think most of you, when you play a game again, basically you can also notice that it starts with 30%. And then only when the player takes damage, it should refresh to 9%. So remember, initially we never tell the health bar to update the value. So what we need to do is so what you need to do is when the player first enter the scene, we also need to ask the health bar to update the value. So get parent, get node, player health bar, and then call update value 100. Okay, let's just call it max health because max health is 100. So if I try play again, I should start from 100% health.
My game mode disappears now.
Yes.
You see my player there no some display.
It won't, I mean, when it disappears, right, it just won't call the function.
Saying look out for this the game main node alone.
Sorry? If the game main node is gone, then the player node will also, it just won't call the function. So, yeah.
So this okay. So
Then show me
so this how step
actually
I
the bottom
what
the
you have to do.
You can't, you just, basically it's the same, right? You won't get to it.
okay we are just with help explain simple.
What actually here, right? Actually, because the file is very well. It's not another. What actually want to be.
Okay, so let's continue. Okay, so I would like to introduce to you something called animation player. So this is basically an alternative way to use animated sprite. So what's the issue now with the animated sprite? So let me show you. So okay, let me play the products that we want to achieve. Okay. Okay, so what I want to do is after like let's say 5 seconds, there'll be some kind of thing that will appear at the player spot, and then it will damage the player. So that's something that you can create by what you have already learned, right? So basically, it's just a scene. So this bullet thing can be a scene, and then you basically just instantiate the scene inside. Okay, you just instantiate the scene inside the scene, and then you just detect the player's position. So that's quite straightforward, right? So let us try to do that. So okay, so uh okay, let's create a new scene. And then remember this is some kind of bullet, right? So we want it to be area 2D. So the root nodes should be area 2D. Okay. And then because area 2D need to be able to interact with the world around, so we need the collision shape. So this should be, after creating a bunch of, this should be familiar to you. And then under inspector, under shape, we need to give it a shape. So let's give it a rectangle. Okay, and let's try to zoom the rectangle out. Okay, and then let's add child node. So remember this kind of bullet, right? There's some kind of animation. So what I need to do is we need to add the animated sprite. Okay, and then under animated sprite, you need to under animation under inspector panel, under animation, you need to add a new sprite frame. But let me save the scene first. So this should be under enemy, and then let me save this as file. Okay, any kind of name that you want. I'll save it as file, and then under sprite frame, what I do is I will. Okay, remember if you have already exported the zip folder, I already put the assets in the file folder. So what I do is, because this time I want to load like multiple frames, each frame is an image file. The frames are not combined in an image, it's separate image files. What I do is I click on the load, the icon over there, and then I choose fire, and then it should be guided arrow.
How do you save the file again?
Right.
So you save it,
Control S.
They take you open that scene.
tree, what's the time of
Guided effect.
Okay,
Okay, I'll add a bunch of guided effect from 1, 2, 3, 4.
Do I put the
Okay.
Okay, so I'll open this. And then remember, after we have added the sprite, we also need to we also need to add a script, and then from the script we ask the animated sprite to start the animation. So let's add a script to area 2D and then attach script. And then under scripts, in the script, what we do is basically we need to ask the animated sprite node to start the animation once it comes into the scene. So what I do is declare the ready function. And then I select the animated sprite and then play. And the animation name is default. Remember how do I get the animation name? I get an animation name by clicking on the animated sprite, and then under this panel over here, I have basically this is the name of the animation. So I click play animation. Okay, so this is just an area 2D, and then we need to be able to instantiate this scene in the basically you need to instantiate this scene in the main map. So remember, this is some kind of thing that attack the player, and we can treat this as like a bullet from the enemy. So what you do is we control this in the enemy scene. So under enemy, we can create a timer. So like let's say after every 5 seconds, we instantiate a new fire. So we can add a new timer. So add child node timer, and this timer we rename it to fire timer. And then this fire timer should have wait time of 5 seconds. And this should repeat on and on, right? After timeout, we should continue the timer, right? So it should not be one shot, and it should be auto start. Basically, we want the enemy to be able to start the attack right away. So auto start. And then what we do is we attach okay, no. Okay, where you click onto the fire timer, and then you click on load, and then you double click on timeout events. So you connect the timeout to the enemy. So basically, there will be a function that pops up in the enemy script, and then on timeout, what you need to do is we need to add the fire scene into the game, and then okay, so let's try to do that. So to add the fire scene, we need to preload the class fire. So let me move this panel away first. Okay, so we declare a new class fire with preload, and then we drag the fire scene over. Okay, and then on fire timer timeout, what we need to do is we need to instantiate a new fire. So bar fire is equal to fire dot instantiate. Right. And what we need to do is we need to add this scene into we need to add this object into the game. So remember, because this object, right, it stays still in the game, it does not follow the player, it does not follow the enemy. So what you need to do is we need to get parent, and which is this get parent basically returns the game node, and then the parent node add this fire as a child node. So dot add child fire. Okay, and remember we need to also make sure that the fire follows the player, right? So basically, not necessarily follow the player, but it should appear at the spot that the player is at. So what you need to do is fire dot position is equal to get parent dot get parent dot get node player dot position. Okay, so let's try.
Okay.
Okay, so after
Okay. Uh,
you click this one.
Can
Yes. Basically you add frames and then add files as frames. And then under assets, you go assets or file. Then you can create you can select the ones that you want. Probably you can select guided arrow with um there should be a guided arrow effect from this one to you select all the frames until this one.
so why is this
Like I'm also having the same problem. I'll show you.
wait, before that
On fire A on this one.
okay, maybe the fire code the fire
Or the fire script. The fire script. Basically, it's just to ask the animated spot to start them.
in my tabs in my game mode got dispute, that's what I was saying. But how do I put it back? My game mode.
Wait, again.
Like the themes and all of these, my game scene.
Or you need to open it. You try and locate what you're seeing. And then you got to double click.
Okay, thanks. This also crashes when the game when you lose, right?
Yeah. I'll show you how you resolve
Okay.
Yes. Get parent is a function you call it a process. Get parent opens up. Script. Okay, anyone still haven't been able to achieve the effect where you start the game and then after 5 seconds, the first fire should appear by the player.
My fire starts appearing immediately.
Because you didn't set the
Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna do time. You go to enemy. Oh wait, the fire is yes. Enemy. Yeah. The fire time like you don't expect it. Yeah.
Oh,
That is 1 second.
No.
Okay, so one thing that you notice is basically when the fire is instantiated, it just stays there forever. It doesn't go away, right? So what you need to do is after one cycle of the animation, we want it to exit to disappear from the scene. So under the fire tab, Okay, click on the area 2D. Okay, actually click on the animated sprite. Oh no. Okay, under the animated sprite, so if you're on inspector panel, you go to the node panel, and then there's a signal called animation finish. So double click on it and then attach it to the area 2D. Okay, actually this area 2D, I should change it to sprite. Yeah, okay. So on animated sprite to 2D animation finish, what you need to do is we queue free. And this may or may not work. Let's see. Okay, it does not work because it's loop, I think. So under animations, there's an option here, animation looping. So I'll disable the looping so that because when it's looping, it's not considered as finished. So if I disable the looping, it should emit the signal, hopefully. Yeah. Okay. One thing that you notice is the animation is kind of slow. So probably what you want to do is increase the frame per second. So maybe I increase it to 10. And let's try again. Okay, so one thing that you notice is actually the animation is it just like jump around, right? It does not stay at the same position. So anyone can tell me why is that so? Anyone have an idea of why is that so? No, yes. Okay, so basically what happens is, okay, where I took this assets from is from another website called Maple Editors. I'll be pasting this link into Discord for your reference. Okay, so this website has a lot of assets, quite crazy, right? So let's see. Let's search for job skills and let's click on random one. Yeah, so the assets quite nice, but what you notice is basically the editors here, right? They don't fix the frame into they don't have a fixed size of the frame. So what happens is let's say if the animation the first let's say the first frame is symmetrical. Okay, but let's say the second frame becomes very slanted. So what happens is what you want to do is you want to fix the let's say the plane is here, right? And then the second frame you want the player to be here. But what happens is the player is actually here. So basically the frame got shifted. So yeah, so you get that's why you see the animation shifting around. So what we can do is we create a new we use I don't know called animation player that can control the animation of the player. So okay, just one thing to note is there's no direct way for you to be able to edit the position of the frames using the animated sprite. So what you need to do is you need to use the animation player. Yes. Um so what you do is right click on the file node and then add child node, and then you can search for a node called animation player. Okay, so the animation player under animation. Okay, let's go to 2D. Okay, under animation, we click on new, and let's call this new animation, just call it fire or whatever or whatever name that you want. So let's say, okay, let's name it the fire adjust position. Let's name it unique way. Okay, and then after you have added the animation, you are presented by this panel where you can add the track. So what you do is you add track and property track. So what you need to do is, so the idea of this animation player, right? is basically we do not use the animated sprite to play the frames. What we do is we use the animation layer to control the animated sprite node. So at property track, so first we choose the node to control the some kind of property. So first we choose the animated sprite node, and then you're presented with a bunch of properties that you can control. So we need to control two properties of the animated sprite here. The first property is the frame, the frame that we're playing, and the second property that I want to control is the position property. So let's add those. First is frame. Should be frame, and let's add another property track. Oh my, cannot click. Okay. And then again, choose the animated sprite node, and then choose a property called position. Yes, position. Okay. So what you need to do, the first thing is the frame. You need to, okay. So on this track, right? Okay. So this track, basically the top one, it shows you the time. Like basically, let's say this track, this highlighted part basically highlights the duration of the track. So what you need to do is, okay, let's try to extend the track to 2 seconds. So you extend the track in 2 seconds, then the highlight part it fills up more. So okay, and if we try to edit somewhere here, right, it's gotta be very squeezed. So what you do is zoom in. So we just scroll, press Control and then scroll. Okay, and okay, another property that may want to edit is the snap. So okay, let me talk about that later. Okay, so what you do is we need to add something called the keyframes. So you hover over the track, let's say the frame track, and then you right click on the position that you want to insert the key. So you right click and then you click on insert key. So this key, right, it can be moved around, but you see, right, it does not move smoothly. It moves basically by the unit of 0.1 second. So even if you try to zoom in, right,
How did you add the key?
right click
Okay.
and then insert key. Okay, so you notice, right, even if you try to zoom in, this keyframe will basically just move by 0.1 second. Why? Because that's basically determined by the snap unit. So this snap unit, you need to change it to, let's say I change it to 0.05, and then I'll be able to move by 0.05.
What is 0.05? Where is that? Oh, okay.
The snap. But for now, for this tutorial, I'll probably just use 0.1 because I want 10 frames per second, so I only need 0.1. I don't need greater precision, but in case you need greater precision, this is where you can adjust. So, okay, so when you click, you right click on the key, okay, you click on the key, you left click on the key, and then you go into the inspector panel. This is where you can adjust the value. So, okay, so let's duplicate keys. Okay, so the second key, what I want to do is I increase the value to 1. So anyone can tell me what's this value, or what does this value represent?
The frame.
Yes, the frame. Yeah, so basically we have the frame. It can take value from 0 to, let's say if we have 15 frames, this value can take from 0 to 14.
Why is my friend look the same? Like a duplicate duplicate frame.
Duplicate key, and then you need to change the value to 1. So this frame here, the first frame, the value is 0. The second frame, the value is 1. And then you can so what I need you to do is you keep on inserting keys and then change the values to 2, and then all the way until you reach the final frame. So let me do that as well.
Yeah. For anyone who can go,
Okay, there should be 14, there should be 15 frames, with the last frame being the value of 14. So you have finished. Okay, I'll give you some moment to do this. So after you finish, right, what you can do is you can limit the amount of time that this animation lasts as well. So because we only have 15 frames, so what I do, we only have 15 frames, so we only need 1.5 seconds for this animation.
it goes that you have if you have the animation important, so you have to see there are two other two. However, it's not, and but what you do. Yeah, no, I had to do the thing with my officer. Every single, but I got it from the same website. Now, honestly, want to get good animation strike, you shouldn't get it from that website, for example, because they just he said like the PNG, the center is always going to be the center. So the animation frame might extend like for example it's explosion. So the right side suddenly becomes the point of the center point of something. If you want to look for a good thing, but usually like let's say if you given if it for instance grounded, right, there should be still like empty pixels on the right so that the frame is still centered. Animation players are really because because players also really want like UI, the time the animation color become animation below.
Yeah. Okay, so once you have already finished the frame track, what you need to do is you need to adjust the position as well. So first, the first frame. Okay, so yeah, it's only 14. There are only 15 frames. So what you need to what you do is you need to limit the animation to 1.5 seconds. It's actually 15 frames. The last value is 14. The indices are from 0 to 14.
Yeah, this is fine.
Okay, so for position, same thing. You need to insert the frames, and then when you click, you need to insert the keys, and then when you click on the keyframe, you can adjust the value of position. So let's try to do for the first frame. Frame 0. Okay, what you can do is you can oh, right click and then insert key. Okay, so you can move the time bar up and over to see whether the animation match. So if it does not match, you see you can adjust. Let's say this one it moves up a bit. So what I need to do is I need to have some kind of positive value of y. So to say y is 5. Yeah, so the first frame and the second frame it match the position. And then from second to third, also make sure that it follows. So maybe 5 is to 7. Okay, and you can do for the other frames as well. So I'll probably do half of the frames for demo purpose and will not bother you with the details of the adjustment. Okay, so from second to third is 4. Hmm? What order?
Uh, did you put the 0.3 as 0 then?
Oh, I mean, you just play around with the X and Y value and see, and then you scroll over the time bar to see whether it match. Yeah, so you can see it when you scroll over, it kind of match, right? Yeah, so what you can do is you scroll over, so you can scroll over and then over the time bar, and then you adjust the position, either Y or X position or both, to make sure that the positions so make sure that animations match. Okay, I've done for around 7 frames. So what you can do is, after you already edited all the frames, right? What you can do is you can click on play, and click on play to see how it plays out. So what you notice is the frames kind of actually move around. So the reason why it is because if you notice the difference on the second track, right? The properties over here, this is actually being continuous. So what it does is basically it linearly interpolates between successive keys. So what you want is you don't want continuous, right? You want discrete points. so that because when the frame doesn't change, position should stay there. So position should be discrete, and frame by default should be discrete as well. So if you play again, yeah, so I will not be editing the last frame. What you can do it at your own time. So okay, so after I have already edited the animation player, what I can do is under the script, under the file script, instead of using the animated sprite to play, what I do is I ask the animation player and then play. And then remember the animation name is defined over here, which is file adjust position. So once you play and the position should not shift around for the few first frame. Yep. And then again, actually, because we use the animation player to play, right? It does not, and the animated sprite does not emit another signal anymore because we don't play the animated sprite. We actually playing the animation player. So what we can do is first we clean up. So first we clean up the signal over here. So right click on this method over here, and then disconnect. So after I disconnect, I can delete this method. And then I click on animation player under the node panel. I right click on animation finish, connect to fire and animation name. So animation name here is just in case you have multiple animation, but in this case, we only have one animation. So what we do is we just queue free. But let's say if you have multiple animation name, what you do is you need to check the name of the animation first and do whatever that you want. So the position of the first few frames should match, and then it should disappear from the scene once the animation is over. So yeah, I'll pause for questions if you have any. How does it crash? How does it crash? I think we probably play or where you go back and animation play or not, you choose the wrong.
Yeah, it's stuck here. Was it on because
Because this one it only disappear animated sprite. The animated sprite only when animated sprite animation finish. But now we're not using that sprite to play anymore, right? So it won't emit a signal. So what you might want to do is you need to ask the animation player to emit rather than sprite. Yeah. So first you can clean up the signal and then use sprite first. So you click on animated sprite. And then on the right click on that. Yeah, and then you can use that. Now, and then animation click on yes. So you can just keep doing that. Now animation specifically I'm not sure if it's a different. I think it's just Okay, one thing you might notice is when you play the game, right? After you die, okay, let's try to end the game. Yeah, so after you die, right? What happens is it throws an error. So invalid get index position on base null instance. So what this message is trying to say is this thing is basically null. So why is that so? Because you already queue freed the player, right? So you try to get the player, it's basically null. So you can't read position from there, right? So what we want to do is we want to keep a reference. We want to test whether the player is there or not. So if it's not there, then you should not be reading from position, right? So what you want to do is we check whether the player is there. So to check whether the player is there, we call weak ref on bullet timer timeout. This it should be an enemy script dot gets ref.
Oh,
Ref. Hmm. Yeah, so you notice, let's say when the player is not there anymore, we don't adjust the position of the fire. So what it does is the fire by default the position is at 0, 0. That's why it appears at the origin. So the syntax is basically get weak ref of this of basically the node that you want to call. So if it's not there, then okay. So basically you call weak ref and then get ref. So get ref will be there's no reference. Okay, but anyways, it will be true if the player node is still there, and it's false if it's not there anymore. So basically, if the player node is still there, then I read from position, then I adjust the file position to be the position of the player. If not, then I do not do anything. So and then I just add then I just get the parent and then add child fire to the scene. Okay, so one thing you'll notice is usually in the game, right? In the actual games that you see, what you see is usually after the player dies, right? The bullets that are supposed to appear there, it will appear at exactly position that you die. So what you want to do is you want to keep a reference of where you last when the player dies. So what you can do is okay. So what you can do is in player in player script, when you die, what you want to, so we already declare a function die, right? So we can reuse this function. So when you die, you want to store like some kind of position. But remember, the position that you store, right? It shouldn't be stored in this script. It should be stored in another script. So what you want to do is you want to, let's say you store the position of the player, um, you store the position of the player in, let's say the game node. So what you do is, okay, let's say get parent and then dot set player position and then set to this position. Okay, so what I do is I get the parent and then I call the method called set parent and set player position in the game node. So and but no take note that this set player position is not a built-in function. So what we need to do is we need to declare this function. So let's go to the main game scene and then attach a script to the game scene. And then we have a field called player position. Okay, and then we declare a function called set player position. this function takes in a position, and then I basically player position is equal to position. And remember, when we declare a variable, we need to declare it with var. So var player and player position, right? And then in enemy, what you want to do is, so when the player is alive, we read directly from the player's position. But if not, in else clause, what you do is fire.position. Okay, fire.position is equal to get parent dot player position.
Anytime that I agree a respawn point,
Sorry?
I have to put in a respawn.
Respawn point. Sorry, what do you mean?
Okay, so can I again Battlefield again? So what I trying to do is
So what I'm trying to do is I try to store the player's death position. Okay, let's just make this variable clearer. So player death position. And then this method should be set player death position. And then in player script, I should be calling method called set player death position. And then in enemy script, I should be getting player the field called death player death position.
Okay, can you show the yeah, the game script.
The game script.
so what I trying to do basically.
What am I trying to do?
Okay.
What I try to do is I store the player's death position, and then I try to make sure that the fire bullet it spawns at the position that the player dies.
Oh,
Yeah. Okay, so let's try. Okay, let's try die first and see how does the bullet behave. Okay, so I die as I die at this particular position, and then basically the fire will keep on spawning at this position.
oh,
Okay, I'll pause for a moment.
What happened? Yeah.
What?
It crashed.
Wait. Non-existent function set player. This that's supposed to be
Okay, sorry. That.
Yeah. It's really the question.
yeah,
Okay, so if you all notice, right, that's basically if you're okay, some of you may have like some kind of square that shows up, right? That's because basically that's collision shape. So what you can do is you click on debug, and then you disable the visible collision shape option.
here any spawn here, the player take damage.
No, it won't take. Okay, like now we only make sure that the fire appears at the player's position, but we haven't implemented the take damage logic. Yeah. Basically, we haven't. If we want the player to take damage, we have to implement the logic for it to take damage. Okay, so the main part of the workshop is about there. Basically, this session is about UI. So we have created the health bar, and we have created the animation player. We also have created the tile map. So we just created the very simple tile map. But let's say in future, let's say you do a game that you kind of exploration, you need to do a very complicated map. That's how you can do the tile map. So before you go, probably what you want to do is you want to make sure that the fire actually inflicts damage on the player, right? So Okay. So a simple way to do is under the fire scene, what I do is okay, we click on the fire node, and then under the node panel on the right, what we do is on body enter, and then we connect that signal to the fire node, and then what you do is body dot take damage, and then the amount of damage that we gonna specify. So we can specify the amount of damage by constant damage is, let's say, equal to 15. So basically, whenever there's a body enter, we we are sure that the body is going to be the player, and then we ask the body to take damage. So this is similar to how you under the bullet. Remember last time we do the bullet, we do the same logic. So basically, we declare a constant called damage, and then on body enter, we ask the body to take damage. So similarly, on fire in fire scene, what we do is when on body enter, we are sure that the body is gonna be the player, and then we ask the player to take damage. So how can we be sure that the body is always the player, right? So that's where collision shape comes in. That's where collision layers comes in. So under the collision, you need to make sure that there's no collision layer. So basically, this bullet does not exist on any layer, and it can interact with the player. So the mass should be one, and this should be the same as the bullet collision layers and mask, which is no layer and mask one.
Wait, can you? Oh wait, I think I made a mistake. Oh no, continue.
Okay. Yeah.
Can you scroll up a bit just? Okay.
So if you play again, yeah, you can see that when the thing appears, right, it will definitely damage the player. Even if you try to dodge, right, you won't be able to dodge. Why? Because like the bullet is set to be at the same position as the player. So you have no way to escape from the bullet, right? So what we want is the bullet should not do damage on, like, let's say, the first 0.4 seconds, so that the player has some time to dodge the bullet, right? So the first 0.4 seconds is, well, so the way to implement that. So remember, 0.4 seconds is to use the timer and one-time timer. So what I can do is we add a child node and search for timer. And then let's name this timer called damage timer. And then this damage timer, the wait time should be, let's say, 0.4. And then it should auto start and it should be one shot. So basically, when the fire comes into the scene, it should start right away. And then on the node panel, you activate timeout. And then on this timeout, right? Okay, so the way to determine whether the fire should do damage on the player is, okay, let's have a variable called var is damaging. And then this should be false. And then on damage timer timeout, we turn this variable to be true. So is damaging is equal to true. And then when the body enter, right, we only ask the body to take damage if the is damaging already turns true. So if is damaging, body dot take damage. Okay, so to test this out, so you may also have the bullet damaging the player, right? So what we want to do is we want the bullet to not take damage on the player so that we can test whether this actually works. So we go back to the bullet scene and we make the damage to be 0. And okay, so now the bullet won't do any damage. Yeah, so I would be able to dodge the fire. But let's say if I stay in the fire, do I not take damage?
No.
Right. Force is normal force, not capitalized. Okay. Anyone can tell me why does this not work?
Because oh, it's now like, oh wow,
It's all body.
it's all like letter.
Yes, correct. So basically, let's say you try it out, right? Okay, like the thing is when the fire first is instantiated into the scene, it basically already emits a signal called body enter because like basically the body is just there, so it's considered entering. But then when the body is already there, then you then when the body is already there, then you not then basically there's no signal, right? So basically it won't damage. So what we want to do is so anyone has any idea of how to implement such that the player can why not we try to implement that? So so the idea here is what we want to do is let's say when the body enters, right, we keep a reference of the player, and then when the body exits, we delete the reference of the player. So that when the timer turns true, right? When the timer is timeout, when damage is turned true, what we want to do is if the so what we want to do is we make the player to take damage. So let's try do that. So on body enter, what you want to do is we want to keep a reference of the player, right? So we say var player is null. Okay, so initially it's null so that it does not keep the reference of the player. So when body enter, we change the reference of this player is equal to body. Okay, and okay, and we want another signal called body exit. So what we want to do is we click on the fire node, and then under the node panel on body exited. So when the body exit, what we want to do is we make the player to be null again. So basically what you do is on body enter, we keep a reference of the body. The body here, we are sure that it's going to be the player because we only have this fire area 2D. It only has the mask 1, and on layer 1, there's only player. So we keep a reference of the player, and then when body exit, we delete the reference to the player. And then on damage timer timeout, what we do is we ask the player to take damage. Okay, but the problem to this is the player might not be there anymore, right? So the player might be null. So when we call take damage on null, it's gonna throw an error. So what I do is we need to check whether the player is not null first. So if player is not equal to null, then player dot take damage. Okay, but so by this approach, basically, if the fire is there and then the player just stay there, then by the time that the timer times out, then the player is gonna take damage. So anyone can see a problem to this approach. Is there any problem with this approach?
Yeah.
Correct. So what we do is so when you go back in the game, then you also want the player to take damage, right? But when it goes back in, we need to make sure that it's already past the timer timeout. So what I do is we still need to keep we still need the variable is damaging. So when it's timeout, we turn is damaging to true. And then on body enter, right? If is damaging, then we ask the body to take damage. Yeah. So let's try it out. Okay, now if I stand still, yeah, I will take damage. So let's say if I try to move away. Okay, wait, let me try to move away. and then I cut again. Okay, but if basically if you okay, but basically if you try to go out and then go in again, you should be able to take damage. Yeah. So I'll pause a moment if anyone has a
Okay, so what did you do now? Now I sense you
take damage. You try and move away from it. Yeah, so that's about it for today's workshop. Yeah. Probably by this week you basically have already learned every basic thing that you need to know about Godot in order to make a complete game. So probably what you want to do is you want to implement some kind of mechanism for the player to be able to fight back the enemy. So probably maybe what you can do over probably between today and the last session, what you might want to do is you can implement some kind of mechanism for the player to fight back the enemy. And then take note that enemy now, there's no health or whatsoever. So probably you want to implement the health for the enemy as well. And then you want to implement the health bar for the enemy as well. But take note that the health bar there's already a scene here. So what you might want to do is you instantiate this health bar scene the second time in the game node. And then you attach the value of the health of the enemy to that second node. Yeah. So what you might want to do is, yeah, so two things. One is implement some kind of mechanism for the player to fight back the enemy. So we have already done the bullet. So what you might want to do is some kind of short range attack, and you might want to think about how you want to do a short range attack. And second thing is to implement the health of the enemy and the health bar for the enemy. So the next session we will also go through most of the things that we go through is already the things that you should be able to do already, which is to implement the background and clean up, some kind of cleanup. So I'll show you what I mean by cleanup by next week. So yeah, I think that's about it for today. If you have any question, you can say back. If not, you are free to. Thank you.
yeah, but because I know I'm doing on Friday, so do I have to is it which lesson compulsory?
It's never compulsory.
I have a quiz tomorrow.
All the best.
Only version, only one. So next week, this week four. So next week five. So we are the last. So next session we go through like some of the content, like basically some of the analysis and like even in the background as well. And we'll be forming teams for week five we get. Yeah. So another week five, which is next week on Saturday, there will be a game jam. So next week on Thursday, Saturday, try to form teams. So
The game jam is 24 hours. So how long is the game jam? Yeah.
Like from morning at 12 until
Okay.
the time.
Okay, so it's 10 hours. Yeah, so it would be 10 hours. It would spend. Yeah.
So I'll stop the recording now.